Insert the tape. Press play. Then the machine does something you probably never saw. The VCR cannot read the tape while it stays safely inside the cassette. Two guideposts reach underneath, catch a small loop, and pull it into the machine. Within seconds, the strip wraps around a tilted metal drum spinning at up to 1,800 revolutions per minute. That thin ribbon must move at the correct speed, remain pressed against the drum, and follow a narrow path. One worn roller or mistimed gear can fold it, trap it, or tear the recording apart. So how did a machine built for ordinary living rooms repeat this operation thousands of times and still return the cassette intact? The answer begins with a time when television did not wait for anyone. Let's get into it right here on Secrets of Simple Things. Before VHS, television controlled your schedule. Before streaming, television was not a library, it was a river. Programs arrived at a fixed time, passed through the screen, and disappeared. If a show began at 7, you had to be there at 7. Miss it, and there was no replay button, searchable archive, or reliable second chance. The schedule belonged to the broadcaster. Home video recorders changed that relationship. VHS was not the first system capable of recording television at home, but it made the ability affordable and widespread. Families could record a program while away, rent a movie for later, or preserve broadcasts and personal moments. VHS also faced a rival. Betamax was often praised for better picture quality, but VHS machines were cheaper, and their tapes held longer recordings. Those practical advantages mattered more to most buyers, and VHS became the dominant format. A VCR did more than play movies. For millions of households, it made television wait. That freedom depended on something physical, hundreds of meters of magnetic tape packed inside a plastic box. There were 248 meters of tape inside. A VHS cassette looked compact, yet the two reels inside could hold about 248 meters of magnetic tape. Stretched out, it would reach most of the way up the Eiffel Tower. The supply reel held the portion waiting to be played. The take-up reel collected it after it passed through the machine. Between them ran a thin plastic strip coated with particles capable of storing magnetic patterns, the patterns that later became pictures and sound. A spring-loaded door covered the exposed edge, shielding it from dust, scratches, and fingerprints. The reels also locked whenever the cassette was outside the VCR, preventing them from spinning freely and spilling tape into the shell. Once the cassette settled into the machine, a pin released the reels while another lever opened the protective door. Only then could the strip move. By the end of a movie, most of the tape had crossed from one reel to the other. That explains the old rental store reminder: be kind, rewind. Opening the cassette was easy. Extracting only the section needed for playback was the difficult part. The VCR had to pull the tape out. Pushing a cassette into a VCR triggered far more than a slide into place. The loading mechanism drew it inward and lowered it into the machine. As it descended, the front door opened, the reels unlocked, and two guideposts entered matching slots underneath. The posts caught a small loop along the exposed edge. Driven by gears, they traveled along curved tracks in opposite directions, widening the loop and carrying it around the mechanism. Within seconds, a narrow ribbon had been threaded through a mechanical maze. It passed the erase head, wrapped around the video drum, crossed the speed control system, and continued past the heads responsible for sound and timing. Seen from above, the route resembled the letter M. Engineers called it the M loading system. If the cassette door opened late, the loop could catch against the shell. If a guidepost stopped short, the strip could fold instead of settling against the drum. Every motion depended on the one before it. Those clicks, whirs, and clunks before the picture appeared were the sound of the machine threading the tape into position. The tape was ready. The picture still did not exist. Why the video had spun at 1,800 revolutions per minute. Audio can be stored as a continuous line along the tape. Video is far more demanding. Every second contains a rapid sequence of detailed images. Why not simply move the tape faster? That would consume enormous lengths of material, shorten every cassette, and make the mechanism harder to control. The VCR used a better trick. Instead of racing the tape past the reader, it made the reader race across the tape. Tiny magnetic heads sat in the upper half of a metal drum, spinning at up to 1,800 revolutions per minute. The tape advanced only a few centimeters each second, yet the heads crossed its surface fast enough to read the dense video signal. The drum's slight tilt was deliberate. As the heads rotated and the tape moved forward, each one swept diagonally across the surface. The next pass created another track beside it, packing information across almost the full width of the strip. This method was called helical scan. During playback, the magnetic patterns in those tracks produced tiny electrical signals. The VCR amplified and processed them, then sent the result to the television as moving images. Recording ran the same path in reverse. Incoming television signals became magnetic patterns, and the spinning heads wrote fresh diagonal tracks after an erase head cleared the old recording. Basic machines could work with 2 video heads. Models with additional heads handled pause, slow motion, and playback at different speeds more cleanly. The reader was fast enough. Keeping the tape steady was the next challenge. Some VCRs hid better sound beneath the picture. Ordinary VHS audio ran as a narrow track along the edge of the tape. It worked, but it could sound thin and noisy. Hi-Fi VCRs placed extra audio heads inside the spinning drum and recorded sound in the same region used for video. The signals did not sit side by side. The hi-fi audio was written deeper into the magnetic coating, while the video remained closer to the surface. That allowed both to share nearly the same space without being mistaken for one another. The cassette did not need to become wider, and the tape did not need a separate section for better sound. Whether the drum was reading pictures or hi-fi audio, both depended on the strip arriving at exactly the right speed. How the machine kept the tape from snapping. The spinning drum did not pull the tape forward. A metal shaft called the capstan rotated at a controlled speed, while a rubber pinch roller pressed the tape against it. Together, they drew the strip steadily past the heads. The tape could be neither slack nor overstretched. Too little tension let it lift away from the drum and lose contact. Too much could distort or snap the plastic. 2 tension arms balanced those forces. Even a brief change in speed could make the image shake, bend, or lose synchronization. Along one edge, a control track stored timing pulses that helped the machine match its movement to the recorded signal. Fast forward and rewind worked differently. The pinch roller released, and the cassette reels spun directly at high speed because the machine no longer needed to read every frame. Slower recording modes could fit more programming onto the same cassette, but each second received less tape. More time meant less picture detail. The transport system kept the strip moving. A beam of light told it when to stop. A beam of light kept the tape from breaking. At the center of the mechanism sat a small light with one sensor on each side. Most of the magnetic tape blocked the beam. Near the beginning and end of the reel, however, the dark strip gave way to short transparent sections. When one reached the mechanism, light passed through to a sensor. That signal told the VCR the tape had reached one end, and the machine stopped before the reel could pull the strip apart. Another safeguard relied on a plastic tab no larger than a fingernail. If the tab remained intact, the VCR allowed recording. Break it off, and a sensor detected the opening and disabled the record function. Commercial movies usually arrived without the tab, protecting them from accidental erasure. Home users found a loophole. Cover the opening with adhesive tape, and the machine behaved as though the tab were still there. Stopping the reel protected the recording. Returning the cassette required the loading sequence to unwind. Eject was the entire process in reverse. Pressing eject did not immediately push the cassette out. First, the drum and tape transport stopped. The pinch roller released, the tension arms relaxed, and the guideposts traveled backward along the same curved tracks. As they returned, the exposed loop slipped away from the drum and wound back into the cassette. The protective door could then close, the reels could lock, and the loading mechanism could lift the cassette toward the front. If the cassette rose while part of the strip remained threaded around the mechanism, the tape could stay trapped inside. That was the familiar moment when a VCR seemed to eat a movie. When everything worked, the cassette emerged with the tape hidden once again inside its shell. The machine had completed an intricate performance just to play a recording. But neither the machine nor the recording was permanent. The machine disappeared. The tape is still aging. A VCR combined mechanics, magnetism, and analog electronics to turn hundreds of meters of plastic into movies, television programs, and family memories. None of those materials lasts forever. Gears wear down, rubber belts stretch and crack, video heads become dirty or worn. The magnetic coating can lose signal, grow mold, or separate from its plastic base. Old cassettes may look unchanged on a shelf while the recording inside becomes harder to recover. That matters most for tapes that exist nowhere else. A child's first steps, a wedding, a voice that has not been heard in years. Home videos are not simply waiting, they are disappearing. The machine once worked hard to protect the tape. Today, protecting what is recorded on it is up to us. If you enjoy discovering the hidden engineering inside ordinary objects, subscribe to Secrets of Simple Things. There are countless machines we once used every day without ever seeing what happened inside them, and each one has a story waiting to be opened.